Well, hello everybody, it's your old pal Ron Howard from Extreme Sequences, back from his world domination tour in Florida and St. Louis. Got to spend some time at the Florida Mega Mini with some wonderful people and then traversed right on over to St. Louis, where the weather was a little more calm but a little more chaotic with the people. Well, who can blame you? It's St. Louis. Now, I'm not digging on St. Louis. They've got some really good ribs, so, that adds a feather in the cap to go visit there. And not only that, Transworld was pretty cool too. But I sure loved my Florida Mega Mini. Anyway, I've been receiving a lot of emails and correspondence about my membership and people that have models that may not match mine. In particular, people have been asking about the PPD Wreath and the Ice Queen, and I've never really messed with those. So my knee-jerk reaction is, look, man, a model's a model. If you just map like-minded groups to like-minded groups, it should work fine. Well, I've spent most of the day trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and it's a little frustrating. And I want to share this with you because I want you to be able to make informed decisions before you go out and buy memberships and sequences and such, that you might have a little bit more work on your hands with a couple of these props. Mostly the PPD Wreath. And I think this has a lot to do with the way that the submodels are created. A lot of times, what they have done with their models is they've taken all of the various submodels and lumped them into one model group. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I've put on here a PPD Wreath and then the Ice Queen up here. And if we look at the submodels on this PPD Wreath, you'll see here that they just said, hey, we'll just lump all the spirals into one. I think this is a monumental mistake. And should I even be saying this? I don't really care. Gosh, if everybody can make their models better, then why not? It benefits everybody. And the same thing with this. Whereas when you have the rings, it's a lot more predictable what you're going to get when you go from rings 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way down. And so what I did was I created a spiral CW individual to match these guys, but I just separated them all out, and I get better results because I'm able to use more of the render styles in X-Lights than what I'm stuck with when it's just all lumped into one. Now, maybe that's what they like, and that, it's good enough. That's totally cool. But what I was trying to do was map over some of my sequences, and I started with, of all choices, I started with Tsunami. And man, what a headache I gave myself trying to do that, because I had to turn off render on a bunch of models because it was pretty intensive. And I said, okay, forget this madness. Let's just open up a sequence. Just create a brand new sequence. No music, just animation. And I have a litmus test. My litmus test is a single line effect. Just a single strand. Man, if you can't make a model or submodel group look good with a single strand, you might as well just not create one. That's just the way I operate, man. So I started off and said, well, let's be fair about this. Let's just use a group level effect like the pinwheel. And as you can see here, the PPD Wreath looks fine. Ice Queen looks fine. My Dazzler looks fine. My Square Peg looks fine. The GE, Steampunk, yeah, it looks good. So these are all predictable at the whole model level on all of them. But that's sort of where it stops. And that was a little bit concerning for me. So what I want to do is just kind of go through. Most of these are set up the same way. I had to make some changes on these because of the way the submodels are made. So this is the ring group. Pretty predictable, not bad. Then we get over here to the pedal group. That's what I would expect. Although it looks a little strange right up in this area. Not really sure what's going on there. This looks normal. That's fine. That's normal, except if I were doing this at this group level, if I move this up one, then I would get that availability. But not so. Okay. Here, yep. And that's fine. So pretty predictable. And what I was trying to do is get the most interesting effect out of all these using the single strand. And that was sort of like the best I could get out of it. And that's okay, because it's just the single strand tool. But again, that's my litmus test. If we go to the Ice Queen, somewhat similar results. That's the way that should be. Now I could change things on here, put that on horizontal per model per preview. It does nothing. Put it on overlay. That looks about the way I would want it to. Here we go with this. Here we go with this. This is the stars. I'm not super excited about that. The inner star, this is all just one submodel group, and then this is the same, and this is the same, and then actually I think I created an all stars group, and I think that might have been this one. So not terribly excited about that. And then this is the Ice Queen tips group. Fantastic. Okay. So then I basically copied these and I put these onto the models I use from Gilbert Engineering. And so again, we know that the whole model pinwheel looks as we would expect. And then we had the pedals group, and you can see here, there's a little bit more density with these pedals group. What I've noticed with the PPD wreath group is while they may have submodel groups, there's not a lot selected. There's not a lot of nodes, so this has a bit more. If we look at the spokes, that's doing what you would expect. Again, I could change this to overlay center. I could change this to vertical per model per preview. So I get a little more that I can do with this because there is more density. If I go to the next one, the rings, as you would expect. The feather group, as you would expect. Diamonds all, again, just different shapes, different movements. These are all very predictable and exactly what I want as a sequencer, including the diamond outer, which I could also change to vertical per model per preview. And then I get all of this fun stuff here with the outer group and the Dazzler outer rings, which is exactly what I want. If we go to the squared peg, one of my favorite models this year, this has some very unique shapes that just nobody else in the world has. And who would have thought square was so cool? But it is, tipped to be square. If we look at the squares alls, we can see a lot of interesting movement there. We look at the spokes. Again, this is the fan spokes. And what I love about this is we have these different shapes all doing things. And it's about symmetry. And I think where people make mistakes is when they try to jump out of the realm of non-symmetry and try to expect it to do things exciting like this. And they don't. Again, some basic effects here, exactly what I would want it to do in both of these. This is the pinwheel. These are pinwheel groups, and I love that I can separate these. It really creates an interesting effect with these isolations. There we go, doing exactly what I'd want it to. Very cool submodel group here, which is the triangles too, and there is also a triangles. So these look really neat with various effects. And again, we're just sticking to the litmus test. I call it my litmus test or my sniff test, because if it don't work, it smells wrong. Here we go. GE steampunk spinners. Again, these I've had this for a couple of years, so these behave exactly the way I want them to. Fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. Yes, we can make birdies. And of course, this is the tracks. The tracks is, there are several effects that look really good on the tracks. The single strand, you have to be careful because sometimes the bounce to middle or from middle look better than going left to right. There's this little anomaly that happens up here, and it's not that bad. I've watched it during my show, and it doesn't bother me, but it just seems like there's a pixel that does not want to play ball, and I guarantee you they are all correct, because if I look at the spinner tracks, and I put this effect on each one of these, they are 100% correct. It's just there's an overlap in the group, and it doesn't like that. And I've seen this on several submodel groups that do this, and I've brought it to the attention in the past of the devs, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal. It doesn't really bother me. Grand Illusion. Okay, there's a lot of submodels on this. So again, this is a native model with a lot of submodel groups, thanks to a lot of cool people who have put some work into this. And this is one of my favorite props to work with because it is so versatile. Now, I know I haven't downloaded the Mesmerizer. I make fun of it sometimes. I call it the Mesmerizer because it's not concentric circles, and when you get to the bottom, I think it turns into a hot mess. So I'm not really interested in working with that prop just because it has more pixels. More pixels is better to a point. When it's just a point to show that you have the most pixels in a prop, you've lost the point of having high density. That's not what it's about. There has to be interesting submodel groups that myself as a sequencer and others can work with to sort of separate what we do from the herd. And so far, I think that's holding fairly good. Here's a flower for the Rosa Grande. This is one of the newest props. Gary had, I believe it was, took this to another level and said, hey, you know what? Let's put Rosa Grande on steroids. And I said, my wife's never going to get over 5 foot, so give it your best shot. And then he came out with this, and I was like, well, okay. She got taller. Here we go. All of these are doing exactly what I want them to. This is the feather, long even. What's new with this are the torches instead of just the feathers. And I absolutely love the torches. Gary found the torches. Said, hey man, what about the torches? I was like, oh my gosh, that's absolutely amazing, dude. So cool. And also mention of Eric Meyer, who's done a ton of work on submodels and really, really gets what a sequencer is looking for when working with submodel groups. And he's not a sequencer, but he gets it. He knows exactly what's going to be kind of cool. Okay, let's go over here to the MOA, another native model that requires different settings depending on the effects you use. This is the bottom part, this is the top part. Those are really for running text effects. There are 3 different text effects on here, which is top, bottom, and full. Again, somebody out there, or these people, I'm sorry, Gary and Eric are paying attention to some of the needs of people sequencing and said, hey, why don't we put a top effect on there, bottom effect for matrix, and all the way around matrix. And I'm really appreciative that they did that. So even rings, odd rings, there we go. Here is another great submodel group, which is the snowflake group. If we were to look at what this looks like, just turned on, and I'd scoot this over, you can see it looks just like that. So cool. Delete that. Actually, it was this one. It was this one. It was this one. I lied. We push this up here. We put a on effect on this. That's what it looks like. I mean, how much more Christmas can you get than that? I mean, the answer is none. All right, let's continue on down the list. Snowflake spokes, stars. And again, you see each of these has somewhat of a different look. And I just totally love that. It just gives me so much to do on the sequencing side. And so for people that ask me, why are you so exclusive to Gilbert Engineering props? Well, I hope this is illustrating that, because I can't get some of this stuff on other props that are out there. This is just above and beyond. And the key to this is because they have been gracious enough to allow me to collaborate with ideas and other people to suggest ideas. And this is what separates the sequencing. Now, it's not just a matter of having the prop and having the submodel groups. You better damn well know what to do with them. You better be able to sit in your seat for 6 hours like I have done today, trying to figure out how to make some of these other props I'm not familiar with dance and sing the way they do with the props I am familiar with. That's what it takes. There are no shortcuts to sequencing. And maybe I need to spend 6 more hours to really understand and perfect it. Don't know, don't have that kind of time. So I'll stick with what I know works for my sequencing style and what excites my club members and clients and customers. So yeah, all of these just look amazing. I mean, this XLS is just absolutely so cool to work with. It's never been a one-trick pony. It has always been just absolutely amazing. And then just a couple more here. King's Ransom, another. This is a brand new prop for 2021. And this was designed when the Gilberts gave a nice little visit to our homestead here. And like always, we will sit down in the morning and start hashing out ideas about shapes. And I try to convey funny ideas with hand gestures. It's like watching some sock puppet show. And Jason looks at me like, just, what do you mean? And in the end, it works out to something fairly phenomenal. I mean, this is just very unique type modeling that you just can't find anywhere. And of course, the Spin Reel Max, which has been tried and true. I know Doug's been working on a version that may replace this. I'm sure we'll probably see something like that in 2022. We're too far in the season right now. And of course, the Starburst, which is always sort of an interesting model. It is not my favorite model. It's probably the model I will do last in any of my sequences. It's sort of the Achilles heel for me because of the way this has to be pushed up a little bit on the axis here to be dead center. Otherwise, if you're at 0, it's not on the money, it's below it. So you got to go up to around 28, 30, somewhere in that area. And that just kind of it bothers me a little bit. And I created the submodels on this, but I'm not super happy with the submodels I created. I'm just not sure what else I would do with it other than give it to Eric and say, Eric, fix this. All right, so I hope that gives you some insight as to why, as a sequencer in my sequences, I don't have a ton of Boscoyo props. And I just feel some of them need a little more work on the submodeling. There is a lot more, I think, can be done with this many pixels in a model. There's a lot there. I mean, honestly, what is this? I don't even know how many are in it. 600. That's a high density prop. The Ice Queen. Node layout, how many? 500. That's a high density prop. If you're not calling these high density props, you're on crack, because that's what they are. I think there are a lot more intricate lines in here that could be used to go from the center all the way out and create really interesting fans. I think this thing would come to life. So if they ever get that done, I'd be happy to revisit it and see if it's something I'd be interested in putting in my show. All right. For those of you that have these and not mine, you can make them look good. You're going to have to put in a little bit of work. That's all I'm going to say about that. For the rest of you that have a bunch of these GE props, well, you're set solid. You're good to go. That's all I got for you, folks. I hope this has been helpful. Talk to you later.